Alexa, what's the weather?
Good morning, Joe. Right now in Annapolis, it's 31 degrees Fahrenheit.
There is no question everything in the modern world will be impacted by AI. Given the mission of the Stockdale Center here at the Naval Academy,
This is the autopilot.
we just want to ensure that we're at the forefront of this conversation and where it leads, because there's a lot of voices.
Heavy traffic reported ahead.
I think this could be, as some people have described it, the biggest event in human history.
In fact, there's so many voices, it appears to an outside observer as a cacophony of words about threats and promises and so on. Well, we seek to, here in the Stockdale Center, kind of sort through that cacophony and get at what the application of all of this is to make us better educators and better developers of leaders.
Welcome to Radio Stockdale. I'm your host, Michael Sears, at the Stockdale Center for Ethical Leadership.
In our very first conversation in this series, 9 months ago now, we discussed what the very point of our consideration of artificial intelligence was going to be. That is, centered on our focus of building ethical leaders of character to serve the nation. Let's return to that initial conversation to see where this is going to take us. It's a full circle moment. There are many approaches, there are many models to developing leadership. Transformational leadership, servant leadership, we could go on. We have consciously embraced a competency-based model for leadership that we define as knowledge, skills, abilities, and attitudes that are measurable, that are developed over the span, in the case of midshipmen here, over 47 months. And we have interventions, very deliberate, very specific interventions across the span of that 47 months from induction day all the way through graduation. And we have struggled at times measuring the return on investment of these various interventions beyond the classroom.
Good morning, as you were.
From a competency approach, knowledge is fairly straightforward and fairly easy to measure. We do that and have done that since the founding of the Academy. In fact, all educational programs typically start in the classroom, and it's easy to measure the attainment of knowledge. It's the skills, abilities, and attitudes that have been challenging. And over the course of the past 10 years or so, we've been much more conscious of the experiences we have midshipmen partake in. In fact, we stood up here at the Naval Academy a Center for Experiential Leader Development to do just that, to very closely and carefully focus on experiences, whether they be experiences as team captains of varsity sports teams or summer training evolution such as sail training here in the Chesapeake Bay or yard patrol craft training, and you name it. If there's an experience in Bancroft Hall or beyond, we've at least attempted to harness the best practices of experiential development toward that end. So it's again these skills and abilities, attitudes that we've been focused on. And while I think we've made great progress on the knowledge side, being much more clear about outcomes we're after.
Your education isn't a mission. That doesn't make sense. Your education is about you flourishing and developing as people.
And then measuring knowledge acquired toward those outcomes. The skills and abilities part, certainly the attitude part, I'm not entirely sure we've made the progress toward learning for mastery, to use the old Benjamin Bloom term for this.
I show you this from Benjamin Bloom's 1984 Two Sigma study.
Learning for mastery hasn't necessarily been achieved. And maybe just a moment on that idea of learning for mastery, or mastery learning as it's sometimes referred to. This is a philosophy of education, usually associated with Benjamin Bloom, who's most known for Bloom's taxonomy. But mastery learning was the idea that if you think about all learners kind of being shaped into a bell-shaped curve or a normal distribution, and that somehow the idea of learning for mastery was to move that, to speed and to hasten the timeline required to gain mastery on the part of a learner or a student. And the key intervention Bloom found in the 1960s was an individual intervention. coaching is how we approach it here at the Naval Academy, or tutoring is the term that Bloom would have used in this regard. But that is, number one, very time intensive. To have an individual tutor costs a lot of money and certainly costs a lot of time. And even here at the Naval Academy, although we have tremendous resources dedicated to this leadership development effort, we've struggled finding the balance beyond the small class sizes, beyond the small unit leadership opportunities out there. We've really struggled with the one-on-one focus. There's just not enough staff, faculty, and coaches to go around to give full attention in a one-on-one sense. It happens in pockets, for sure, but the full attention, one-on-one, tutoring, coaching, mentoring, has been a challenge. This is one great area that I think AI could change that dynamic, because as GPT-4 and other applications of AI have shown, the algorithm tailors quickly and effectively to the needs of the learner. And you can have that teach, coach, mentor, at least in terms of information that's served up, in your pocket in the form of a smartphone. And the algorithm, as it continues to learn the wants and needs of that learner, becomes more effective over time.
The change of command is a time-honored tradition that formally symbolizes the continuity of authority as the command is passed from one individual to another.
So if we can somehow combine our competency-based model, we know we have some 24 competencies that we're focused on, and we've got measures of effectiveness for those. Well, those outcomes are in place, right? This is the strategy of education for leadership development going forward, and strategy, of course, is comprised of ends, ways, and means. The ends, learning outcomes, have been clarified for us in our strategic plan and through the use of these competencies. The ways in which we go about achieving those ends, well, that's been evolving, and it will evolve. And I think AI will be an important part of the conversation to give us more effective ways to achieving those ends. Now, the means by which we do it, taxpayer-funded programs and systems and so on, with philanthropically raised resources. And it's the combination of those two things that have given us a strategy. There is no question that AI will disrupt that strategy, just as AI promises to disrupt everything in the knowledge economy.
And these things suddenly become cheat machines.
Education absolutely is included in that. Leadership development within education is absolutely included in that. So we just want to ensure that we're at the forefront of this conversation and where it leads, because there's a lot of voices.
Artificial intelligence. What is it? Digital brains inside large computers.
What we're dealing with here is intelligence.
What happens when something vastly smarter than the smartest person comes along in silicon form? It's very difficult to predict what will happen.
I think this could be, as some people have described it, the biggest event in human history.
In fact, there's so many voices, it appears to an outside observer as being a cacophony about threats and promises and so on. Well, we seek to, here in the Stockdale Center, kind of sort through that cacophony and get at what is really important about this conversation, what the application of all of this is to make us better educators and better developers of leaders.